What's up, everybody? I am your host, a stolen shitty brown station wagon, and that is my co-host, a teenage final girl who dresses like my grandma. And we have made it to the final episode of our Halloween special, which must mean either we got canceled early or it's finally Halloween. Hopefully it is the latter.
I hope so. I would be very lost.
Yeah. After many conversations, debates, and even an arm wrestling match, we finally figured out what movie we were going to do for Halloween. So, a bit of inside information. We pretty much had the whole October schedule completely planned out at the end of September, but we could not decide on the final movie. We kind of just went back and forth on different ideas. But after much discussion, we settled on doing the ultimate Halloween movie, John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978.
I feel like we've done I'd say 2 out of the 3 most controversial movies in the series. Might as well take it back home where it all began.
Might as well. You know, we were kind of hesitant to cover the movie because there's just not to cover it, just to cover it now. Because I feel like this is such a big movie, I would want a lot of time to put the episode together. You also have, people are so passionate about this, whether you love it or you hate it. You probably have a strong feeling for it. But we said, fuck it, man. We'll take a crack at it, and some people like it, some people won't. We kind of learned that with our Halloween 3 episode last week. That is a very passionate fan base.
It is.
Yeah.
And most of them are probably not going to be as excited about this episode.
No, some of the comments I read, I was like, damn, you're really not going to like next week. And here we are. Also, YouTube listeners, you may have noticed the lack of episode on Monday morning. Well, apparently YouTube had some kind of issue with the coding embedded in the file, so they wouldn't post it at first. But we got it on there. But just for future reference, if you find an episode missing from your preferred listening platform, you can always head on over to our website where you can always find our episodes posted. It's typically the first to get updated and it never really has any issues. Plus, we actually run that one, unlike YouTube or Spotify. We don't have any say-so over the other ones.
And it looks cool.
It looks cool. It's a really awesome website. And one more announcement before we jump into things. September and October are our busiest months out of the year for obvious reasons. And we just want to kind of kick back and enjoy our Halloween weekend. So we are going to take a little bit of a break next week. We are still going to drop a little something fun for you guys, like a little short fun episode. But just a heads up, we won't be doing the full-length episode next week, but we will be back in action the following week. So with that being said, let's jump into John Carpenter's Halloween.
Let's do it.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at GrindhouseSyndicate.Horror.Pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And if you really love us and don't want us to escape from this mental institution that we have been recording in this whole time, give us a review. Halloween is a 1978 American independent slasher film directed and scored by John Carpenter, who co-wrote it with producer Deborah Hill. It stars Donald Pleasance, Jamie Lee Curtis, PJ Soles, Nancy Loomis, and Nick Castle as Michael Myers, aka The Shape. Set mostly in the fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois, the film follows mental patient Michael Myers, who was committed to a sanitarium. Almost read that wrong. Who was committed to a sanitarium for murdering his teenage sister one Halloween night during his childhood. He escapes 15 years later and returns to Haddonfield, where he stalks teenage babysitter Lorie Strode and her friends while his psychiatrist, Dr. Samuel Loomis, pursues him. It was produced by Compass International Pictures and released on October 25th of 1978. It had a budget of $325,000 and a box office of $70 million. Now I went and adjusted that for inflation. That would be like making $338 million in 2024.
That is a lot of fucking money.
A horror movie that makes $338 million would be really something.
Well, there's a reason this movie literally changed the landscape of horror.
Changed the game. So because of that, it became one of the most profitable independent films of all time. Praised for Carpenter's direction and score, critics credit the film as the first in a long line of slasher films inspired by Psycho from 1960 and Black Christmas from 1974. It is considered one of the greatest and most influential horror films ever made. In 2006, it was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
Wow, that took them to 2006 to do?
It did. That's actually a long time. So, one thing that we're not going to touch on in this episode is the whole undertones that, a lot of film scholars and stuff kind of come up with this movie. And the reason why is because John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, they kind of claim that they didn't write the movie like that. They just wrote a horror movie. So I'll just kind of leave that on the viewer of their opinion of what they think this movie necessarily, like what the undertones of the movie is.
Yeah, I mean, art as a whole, whether you're talking about movies or paintings or music, is really how you interpret it.
Yeah.
How it makes you feel. So I understand people saying that, but you hear this, the undertones spoken as factual, like they were written this way. And when the people who made the movie come out and say that's not the case, I believe them.
Yeah, I mean, there's people on both sides. Some people say it was bad for women. Some people say it was good for women. So, whatever side of the fence you're on is whatever side of the fence you're on. We're going to kind of stick to more factual stuff here. So, Carpenter was approached by an independent film producer, Irwin Yablans, about directing a film for them about a psychotic killer that stalked babysitters. Carpenter agreed to direct the film as long as he could have full creative control and was paid $10,000 for his work, which included writing, directing, and scoring the film. He and his then-girlfriend Deborah Hill then began drafting the story of Halloween. Hill, who had worked as a babysitter during her teenage years, wrote most of the female characters' dialogue, while Carpenter drafted Loomis's speeches on the soullessness of Michael Myers. Many script details were drawn from Carpenter and Hill's own backgrounds and early careers. The fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois, was derived from Haddonfield, New Jersey, where Hill was raised. In devising the backstory for the film's villain, Michael Myers, Carpenter drew on haunted house folklore that exists in many small American communities. Most small towns have a kind of haunted house story of one kind or another, he stated. Carpenter's inspiration for the evil that Michael embodied came from a visit he had taken during college to a psychiatric institution in Kentucky. There, he visited a ward with his psychology classmates where the most serious, mentally ill patients were held. Among those patients was an adolescent boy who possessed a blank schizophrenic stare. Carpenter's experience inspired the characterization that Loomis gave of Michael to Sheriff Brackett in the film. Deborah Hill has stated that the scene where Michael kills the Wallace's German Shepherd was done to illustrate how he is really evil and deadly. Because of its low budget, most of the actors received very little compensation for their roles. Donald Pleasance was paid the highest amount at $20,000. Curtis received $8,000 and Nick Castle earned a whole $25 a day.
Yeah, I read the $25 a day. That is fucking insane.
Yeah,
like
for the main, I don't know if I'd say main character. Pretty close to main character.
He's the main character of the franchise, though. This is the first movie, the first version of one of the most famous characters in horror. And he made a whole $25 a day. And did you adjust that for inflation?
No, but they only shot for 20 days, so probably not a lot of money for him. So our man Tommy Lee Wallace, who we just talked about, who directed Season of the Witch in the last episode, created the trademark mask worn by Michael Myers throughout the film from a Captain Kirk mask purchased for $1.98 from a costume shop on Hollywood Boulevard. Carpenter recalled how Wallace widened the eye holes and spray painted the flesh a bluish white. Many of the actors wore their own clothes, and Curtis's wardrobe was purchased at JCPenney for around $100.
Did you see the original, like when they were trying to figure out what mask was going to be worn? One of them was a clown mask.
I heard about it, I didn't see it.
Oh, there's pictures of him, I guess, whenever they were doing testing in the clown mask and the overalls. And he looks like Clown from Slipknot. Like, it totally looks like a Slipknot clown gimmick.
I gotta look at that. I gotta see that.
Yeah, thank God that they went with what they did. I think the expressionless, just blank face fits the character so much better than another evil clown in horror.
Yeah, honestly, though, when I was a kid, I didn't find his look scary. I was much more like the Jason and Freddy's were kind of more creepy, kind of scary to me. But now that I'm older, something about being an adult, I find that just this stranger, this big-ass stranger walking around with this basically black eyes and fucking this blank expression mask is a lot more creepy to me.
Well, I don't know why. It was so effective in this movie with the whole character is like the embodiment of evil, and you don't really know anything about him. You see him once as a kid, but the only part of him that you can look into is the eyes, which are blacked out, and you have this blank expression face, which just fits the character of somebody who is emotionless.
Yeah. So Halloween was filmed in 20 days over a 4-week period in May of 1978. Filming locations included South Pasadena, California, Garfield Elementary School in Alhambra. I don't know how to say that. Alhambra, California, someplace in California, and the cemetery at Sierra Madre, California. An abandoned house owned by a church stood in as the Myers house. 2 homes on Orange Grove Avenue near Sunset Boulevard in the Spalding Square neighborhood of Hollywood were used for the film's climax. The crew had difficulty finding pumpkins in the spring, and artificial fall leaves had to be reused for multiple scenes. Local families dressed their children in Halloween costumes for trick-or-treat scenes. Halloween spawned a film franchise comprising of 13 films, which helped construct an extensive backstory for Michael Myers, sometimes completely diverging entirely from previous installments. A novelization, video game, and comic book series have also been based on the film.
So I'm sure you know the story of them collecting the leaves in bags over and over again and using them because obviously there was no dead leaves in California at this time. And at the time of year that they shot it, I assume 1978 had some dead leaves.
There was some. There's probably some.
So what I didn't know, and I've heard a ton of stuff about this movie. It's the first time I've ever heard this. Robert Englund actually worked on the set of this movie, and he was one of the people who went out and bagged up a bunch of leaves to bring them to the set.
Wow. There is actually another interesting Nightmare on Elm Street fact at the end of this episode.
Huh.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's going to be 2 connections. It's
So
interesting.
just feed you a little bit now.
Yeah,
Get the rest at the end.
Give you the first hits free.
Yeah, but I mean, I had never in anything about this movie or Robert Englund in interviews, I'd never heard that. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right, so ratings. I believe that this got what you call the independent bump.
Oh,
Yeah.
I bet so.
So Rotten Tomatoes, 96%. Is that the highest Rotten Tomatoes we've come across on the whole show?
Yeah, maybe. I know there's been some newer movies that's come out, but I don't think we've covered them before. They're like Late Night with the Devil had a really high at first, but I think by the time we covered it, it had come down some.
Well, it'll be really high at first from critics, but then when you start getting like other people to see it, it'll drop down a little bit. So IMDb gave it a 7.7 out of 10. Letterboxd gave it a 3.8 out of 5, which I was surprised about that. And the Google average audience rating is a 4.4 out of 5. If you would like to watch this movie, you can currently find it streaming on, this is a lot here, Xumo Play, Plex, AMC Plus / Shudder, Sling TV, Amazon Prime, Crackle, and you can rent it on Apple TV, Google Play, and Fandango for $2.99. So
Yeah, look, there was a lot.
there was a lot, yeah.
My Blu-ray would not play. The first movie is the only one it wouldn't play. It's perfect, not a scratch on it. I don't know what was going on there, but I had to look up the list, and I was like, holy shit.
Yep.
A lot of people getting their hands on this for October.
All right, so are you ready to dive into the plot of John Carpenter's Halloween?
I am ready.
All right. So we start off in Haddonfield, Illinois, Halloween night in 1963. We get a POV shot of someone walking up to a nice little 2-story white house in the suburbs with a jack-o'-lantern on the porch. And what do we immediately see? Why, 2 teenagers passionately making out, of course, which seems to be a driving cause for murder in the slasher subgenre. The POV then moves to the side of the house where we see through the window that the 2 teens have moved to the living room to continue their makeout session before quickly heading upstairs for some premarital sex, we assume. We then see this mystery person head around to the back of the house and enter through the back door, where they pull a very large butcher knife from the kitchen drawer. As this person slowly walks through the house, we then see the teenage boy standing at the top of the stairs, putting his shirt back on, saying goodbye to the girl he was upstairs with. So, I guess they fucked already? He was only up there like maybe a minute.
Yeah, he made it quick.
He's fast. The boy then hurries down the stairs and out of the front door as we see the mystery person head up towards the bedrooms. Once they reach the top of the steps, they find a plastic clown mask, which we see them put on as they head into the teenage girl's room. Once they come around the corner, we see the girl, who is mostly naked, sitting in front of a mirror brushing her hair. She then turns and spots the mystery intruder, where in an angry voice she yells Michael as she attempts to cover her breasts. But before she can say anything else, we see Michael begin to stab her repeatedly all over. The girl eventually falls to the ground, where we see her chest covered with blood. We then follow Michael's POV as he heads down the stairs, out the front door, and out onto the sidewalk as his parents pull up in a car. His dad then walks over, removing the mask, and this is where we finally get to see the killer, and it turns out that he is just a child dressed in a clown costume. As a blank-faced Michael just stands there holding a large bloody knife, and his parents look at him confused, the camera pans back where we get a shot of him and the Myers house, which will become very important in this movie.
What a absolute perfect intro.
That's good.
The score coming in with the black and orange Halloween colors.
Yeah.
That score, and I will say, I think is the most iconic and, in my opinion, best score in horror.
Yeah, I'm going to save most of my opinions for the end of this, but I will say that the score is very important in this movie.
Every time this score starts in the very beginning of this movie. I just get this warm feeling.
That it's Halloween.
It's Halloween. Also, I love the POV that they do in the beginning. Like, saving the surprise. You don't know it's a kid at first. Yeah, it definitely looks like an intruder. And then Judith Myers, man, but what a killer pair of breasts.
Yes.
Literally.
So actually, there's a cool fact here. When the location scouts found the house that ended up being the Myers house, it was actually pretty run down. It looked like what we see in the rest of the movie. They didn't really do any changes to it. Because of this, they actually ended up filming the opening scene here last. So the crew and even the actors actually, once they finished filming like 90% of the movie, they actually went and like fixed up this house themselves. And this is the version that we actually get here in the beginning.
That's it. When you first started saying that, I was thinking, it'd be funny if they shot it in reverse.
Yeah, they had to, because the house already looks like shit. It was a real abandoned house.
Well, they did a good job fixing it up. The house is definitely a super important part. It's literally the opening and last shot of this movie.
Yep.
Also, the mask. Trick or Treat Studios actually makes a copy of this mask that they sell.
I didn't know that.
Which is kind of really cool. It's one of those things that only like big Halloween fans would pick up on.
So we then jump forward to Smith Groves, Illinois on October 30th of 1978. So pretty much 15 years later. We see that it is a very stormy night, and we meet two people in a car heading up to Smith's Grove Sanitarium. The first person is just a nurse that works for the sanitarium, I guess. I'm not exactly sure who she works for.
It sounds like she's like going to be the doctor taking him over, but she's definitely dressed like a nurse.
Yeah. And the second one is Michael Myers' longtime psychiatrist, Dr. Samuel Loomis.
And best friend.
And their job is to pick up Michael and transfer him to another facility in order for him to see a judge. While in the car, they talk a little bit about the situation, and this is where we discover a few important details. So, for one, Michael hasn't spoken a word since he murdered his sister 15 years ago. We also learn that Dr. Loomis doesn't really see Michael as a person, more like evil in the shape of a man, and he believes that Michael should never, ever be let out of Smith's Grove for his crimes.
Yeah, and the nurse seems very confused by why he would not want him to get out. And I'm like, what? If this is the doctor who's been with him for 15 years,
I would trust him.
And he's telling you, like, no, he can never get out. Like, I would definitely not question that.
So upon pulling up to the entrance, they discover all of these mental patients just wandering around after the gate had been busted through. The nurse is like, since when did they let them just wander around?
So stupid.
It's like, really? Like, you think that even if they did let them wander around, it's fucking nighttime during a storm.
This is where they keep them at night.
Obviously something's wrong.
Not a good facility.
No. She's not a very good nurse lady. So they pull up to the gate, and Dr. Loomis tells the nurse to wait in the car while he runs up to the guard shack. This thing could have almost been completely prevented if Loomis would have listened to her, because she's like, why don't we head up to the main building? Which is what they should have did. But he is the reason that Michael escapes, and he kind of blames everybody else.
Yeah, well, no, they were already escaped. I'll say,
yeah, but he wasn't like escaped. He was still on the property.
He's the reason that Michael Myers didn't have a long walk. He would have got there next Halloween.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's at like 150 miles, so assuming he doesn't steal another car, it would have probably taken him about a week, 2 weeks maybe of hiking. I don't know if my hiking timeline is very on, but he would have missed Halloween.
Yeah. Anyway, he runs up to the gate, and while the nurse is sitting in the car, we see a man run up and climb on the top of the car. The nurse hears him up there and is like, what the fuck is going on? When suddenly a large hand comes down and grabs her face. This causes her to step on the gas, sending the car towards some bushes. Once the car comes to a stop, we see the man break the glass, causing the nurse to jump out and the man to steal the car. And needless to say, Dr. Loomis is pissed. So we then head back on over to Haddonfield, and it is now Halloween. And we meet our main character, Lorie motherfucking Strode, who we see is a 17-year-old, very modest, kind of uptight, good girl. So when we meet her, she is heading off to school when her father, who is a real estate agent, asks her to drop off a key at the now abandoned Myers house. She agrees and heads off down the street. Now, I know there's a lot of people that really love Lorie Strode as a final girl.
But not Jamie Lee Curtis.
But
we don't like her.
But good God, they dressed her like a fucking 80-year-old grandma. Like her outfit. Her outfit, later on is better. But man, this one that she wears like the first half of the movie is awful. It's awful.
Yeah, she dresses awful. The girl who plays her is awful. Everything about, honestly, for as much as people bring her up as like the original Scream Queen, I feel like I love this movie. I do. And it's not just because I can't stand Jamie Lee Curtis. I feel like her character as a final girl, she's a good final girl, but I don't think she's like as awesome as everybody makes her out to be. I don't get people's like obsession with her.
I think that at the time she was, because final girls weren't really a thing then.
I know, but now looking back, we know good final girls.
Yeah, we've been spoiled with some good ones. Nancy Thompson. But I think it was just at the time, it was a new thing, and she's kind of the original. And I do like her in this movie. Like, she does a really good job in this movie. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, when you compare her to the final girls that we've had since then, I don't think she's as good.
Yeah, I don't think she does bad by any means. I don't think she's like a bottom tier final girl.
She's just I
just see it kind of average as when you compare all the final girls we've gotten since.
So while walking, we see her joined by a young neighborhood kid named Tommy Doyle, who is, I don't know, he's like 10 or something. She's his babysitter, and we find out that she is planning on watching him tonight. There is no amount of money that would cause me to give up Halloween night as a fucking teenager to watch a kid.
No.
Nope, not happening.
Well, for her, she doesn't really do much with her teenage years. So she's like, it's either that or I could spend time looking through my chemistry book that I forgot.
So they arrive at the Myers house, and Tommy is being a little bitch because I guess the house has a creepy reputation now. But despite this, Lorie walks up, puts the key under the mat, and joins Tommy back on the sidewalk. And then we see a man standing in the house watching Lorie from the shadows. And yes, this would be the escaped murderer Michael Myers, who left the oven on and has finally come home to turn it off. He's back.
It's like, wow, this place really went to shit.
He probably passed it 4 times before he fucking was like, damn. Back at Smith's Groves, Loomis is chewing out the director of the hospital for basically making it so easy for Michael to escape, says the guy who left the nurse in the car. He then tries to tell him to call the police and warn them that Michael is heading back to Haddonfield, but the director refuses because he thinks Haddonfield is too far away for Michael to travel.
Does Dr. Loomis really think somebody taught him how to drive?
I don't know.
He like accuses them, like, I don't know, maybe somebody here gave him lessons. Like, you haven't been able to get this guy to talk the entire time you've been his doctor for 15 years, and you think somebody gave him driving lessons?
Yeah, I think he was just mad. When you're that mad, you say shit that sometimes you shouldn't say. So next we get a pretty quick scene of Lorie sitting in class, and when she looks out the window, she notices a car, which we recognize as the stolen station wagon from the night before. But it is parked on the street, and there is a man in a dark blue jumpsuit and solid white mask standing next to it. And this is our first look at the now infamous Michael Myers. This is really the first time the world's seen the white mask, dark blue overalls.
The shape.
The shape.
The shape of evil.
The eyes are evil.
You know,
damn eyes.
This station wagon is actually
Terrible.
It's a terrible station wagon, but it's actually super important. So I've never realized until this watch that how much they used this in the movie. And there's a lot of like scenes of them walking and talking where it's like parked on the block or driving in the background that I never really noticed. You realize this entire movie that he is watching them, one of the three or all of them, at literally this entire movie. At every point, almost every scene, if he's not in it, somewhere in the background, this car is sitting, showing, telling the viewer that he is around.
Yeah, it's a really big plot point. Like, this is how he escapes. This is how he follows them around. This is how he gets found.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a very big plot point.
I just never noticed all the scenes and with this just creeping in the background of scenes that I thought were just regular talking scenes where you would never notice, but 3 blocks down, it's sitting on the side, parked on the side of the road, where essentially he is watching at every moment of this movie going forward. I thought that was really cool. Do you think that he had to stop for gas at any point? Because he drives a lot in this movie.
No.
No?
No, I think that
it
car had
a full tank.
A full tank. And it's probably got a really big gas tank. It's a big car. I don't think Michael would know how to fill it. I don't think he would have money to pay for it.
He would have pulled up to the pump and been like, what the fuck is this?
What am I supposed to do?
Pretty sure when he was a kid, they like pumped gas for you. He sat for like 4 hours outside the gas station waiting for somebody to pump his gas.
Yeah.
They weren't pumping gas for you still in
I don't know.
78.
In New Jersey, I think they still do it. It's like state law. Yeah, you can't pump your own gas there.
That's weird.
It is weird.
That would be super weird.
So this gives Lorie a weird feeling, but when she looks back, the man and the car are both gone. So next we see Tommy Doyle getting picked on at school by 3 little fuckface kids, but they basically tell him that on Halloween, the boogeyman comes out and he is going to get Tommy tonight. Tommy then tries to run away. They trip him and cause him to fall and squish his pumpkin. One of the shithead kids takes off, running directly into Michael, who is just lurking around the school like a weirdo. He then kind of follows Tommy in his car, even to the point of pulling up next to him before driving off. We then head on back over to Loomis, who is on the way to Haddonfield when he stops to use a relic of the past on the side of the highway. He stops to use a payphone. We hear him on the phone with the Haddonfield police attempting to warn them of Michael's escape, but it doesn't sound like they are taking it too seriously. Once he gets off the phone, he finds an old mechanic's truck parked near the bushes with the door wide open. Loomis walks over to investigate, where he finds Michael's discarded clothes from Smith's Grove. As he walks away in frustration, we see the mechanic's dead body laying in the tall grass a few feet away from the truck. So now we know where Michael got his famous overalls.
Are they coveralls or overalls?
I don't know. What's the difference?
I think they're I don't fucking know, to be honest.
Somebody's gonna fucking correct us. Like, we're gonna get a comment. It's like, well, technically overalls are this.
Overalls are the things that strap around your shoulder, right?
Are they?
And coveralls have a top to them. Like, coveralls are the full suit. I'm pretty sure I'm right there, but somebody I'm sure is gonna have some technical shit.
Hey Siri, what's the definition of an overall? Oh, it didn't work. It didn't tell me.
Overall means taking everything into account. Do you want to hear the next one?
No, overalls like you wear.
Okay, I found this on the web for no overalls like you wear.
Yeah.
Thank you, Siri. You didn't clear that up.
Put people on the moon, but
she tries. Give her credit. Siri, you can go away now.
I'm be honest, I hate Siri. Like, I don't know how often I'm sitting there and my fucking iPad like just starts recording some shit that I'm literally in the middle of a conversation.
Yeah, so next we meet Lorie's 2 best friends. Are we going with coveralls or overalls?
I went with overalls, man. Well, here's the deal. I know, or I went with coveralls, sorry. I know that they're coveralls. Now, maybe they're also considered overalls.
I thought they were overalls because they're over your whole body.
You know what? We're gonna figure this out before we go any further.
Like, there's no separation in top and bottom, so it's all, you know?
Yeah, but a coverall covers your whole body.
But you need it over your whole body, not just covering
All
you.
right, so a coverall is for sure.
Okay.
Okay.
That's an overall.
All right, so
People are going to be like, these dudes are fucking idiots.
somebody's gonna be like, "No, that's a good question."
I mean, it is a good question, I
Yep,
think.
I'm right. Overalls are this farmer fucking things that people put the straps over their shoulders, and coveralls are what
Well, but
Michael
that's
Myers
so-
fucking slaves people
That's
in.
weird because it doesn't cover all of you.
Look,
Your arms and chest are
even-
still exposed.
even when you type in overalls, it shows the farmer
So, all right.
overalls. And then down here where you actually get coveralls, it even says coveralls.
All right, so we're going with coveralls. So I probably wrote it in my notes as overalls, so feel free to correct me. But
Oh, I will.
where the fuck am I at? So next we meet Lori's two best friends. We have Linda, who is like your free-spirited head cheerleader, popular girl, and Annie, who is the daughter of the sheriff and kind of like your smartass party girl. Both are very different than Lorie. But the girls are talking about their day when Lorie stops after realizing she left her chemistry book at school. And while they are standing there, she suddenly sees the brown station wagon from earlier turn the corner and drive past them real slow. As the car approaches, Lorie sees the white mask behind the wheel, causing her to get another weird feeling. The car then kind of speeds off, prompting Annie to yell, "Hey jerk, speed kills," when all of a sudden, the car slams on its brakes, stopping in the middle of the road. This kind of freaks the girls out a little bit, and they just kind of stand there staring at the car. Michael then drives off, leaving the girls relieved as they continue their walk. A few moments later, Linda breaks off once they reach her house, and Annie and Lorie continue down the sidewalk, when suddenly Lorie spots Michael standing halfway behind a hedge watching them. And this is probably one of the most famous scenes in this movie, possibly in horror in general. This is a very famous shot of Michael Myers.
It is, and if you look about a block behind him to the right, the car is parked on the side of the road. Good continuity.
So now Annie doesn't see this because she is like digging something out of her purse, but Lorie is shook, which I don't blame her because it seems like Michael like has a serious hard-on for Lorie.
Yeah, after the school thing and then this, I would be definitely freaked out.
This is creepy. He then nonchalantly just disappears behind the hedge right as Annie looks up. Lorie tells her that it was the guy in the car, which prompts Annie to go call him out, but when she arrives at the hedge, there's no one there. Annie definitely has that, like, my dad's the sheriff attitude.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, Annie is kind of a little bit more of a bitch than I remember. I hate to say that. I just always compare this character to Danielle Harris. I know people out there who hate the Rob Zombie movies gonna hate that, but she is no Danielle Harris.
Well, I actually really like her, though. She's actually one of my favorite characters in this movie. I really like Annie. I think she is a good addition, and she is entertaining to watch.
But kind of a bitch at times.
Yeah, a little bit. We then arrive at Annie's house, where we meet her father, Sheriff Brackett, who becomes more important later on. Another thing I noticed, there's already trick-or-treaters out.
Yeah.
Like, school just got out 30 minutes ago. They haven't even walked from the school to their house, and there's already kids trick-or-treating.
I guess in 78, they just, like, all day.
Just whenever.
Like, just literally from the time they get out of school till night, you just trick-or-treat.
Honestly, if a trick-or-treater came to our house, like 3:30, for one, probably wouldn't be anybody to answer the door, and we're still at work. But two, like, even if I was home, I'd be like, shit, man, I don't even have the candy out.
Yeah.
I don't even have the candy ready. But Lorie then arrives home, where she heads up to her room, and after putting her stuff away, she looks out her window only to find Michael standing in her backyard looking up at her. He's definitely giving off some rapey vibes. I would say. And how does he know where her room is?
I don't know. He's just got that embodiment of evil knowledge.
That's what it is, yeah.
That's
Just those eyes.
It's those eyes for sure. They just guide him to wherever the best creepy place to look at.
But of course, he just vanishes right in front of her eyes, and when she is suddenly startled by the phone ringing, it ends up just being Annie informing her that she will pick her up to go babysitting at 6:30.
Maybe
Sounds like an exciting Halloween night.
maybe Michael Myers was just looking for a new pair of sheets. He's got a new life.
This is true.
He don't have sheets now. He's got to find a. Maybe he was admiring them.
Maybe
It's
he's like,
man,
you got a room to rent?
do you know what the thread count on the sheets in the fucking psychiatric unit is? It's like
20.
Yeah, it's 20, 25. That's
20
all we
very
get.
rough, uncomfortable threads.
We sleep on sandpaper.
Pretty
This
much.
is why I haven't talked for 15 years.
So next we jump on over to Loomis, who has arrived at the Haddonfield Cemetery with the guy who runs it. And they are looking for Judith Myers' headstone. And just in case you don't know, Judith Myers is the teenage girl that Michael kills when he was younger, basically his older sister. While walking through, the caretaker notices a fairly decent-sized tombstone is missing, and of course, he blames it on those damn kids fooling around.
Man, I wanted to know the rest of his story. Like, what did this guy do with this hacksaw?
Yeah.
Like, damn it, Loomis, why'd you cut him off?
This was the first time I paid attention to what
It
he was
is.
saying.
me too. Like, when you're doing a deep dive and you're literally, like, senses on high alert, I'm like, okay, well, how does this connect to the story? And then I'm like, wait a minute, no, I want to know.
Well,
what did this guy do with
honestly,
the fucking hacksaw?
I was getting the vibe, like, what locked me in was like, maybe Haddonfield like has to have like one evil guy at a time. This was like the evil guy with the blackest eyes, evil eyes, before Michael was like the bad guy of Haddonfield.
Yeah.
And that's why I was listening, because I was like, oh shit. But then, he doesn't finish the story and leaves us hanging.
The guy had a great dinner with his family. He put his kids to bed. He kissed his wife. He got a hacksaw and did what with it? Like, did he saw himself in half?
Did he saw his family in half?
Like, you have to have some like paranormal embodiment of evil to saw yourself.
With a hacksaw, you gotta have a lot of strength too.
Yes.
But yeah, so the tombstone's missing, and he looks down at his paper and realizes that it is Judith Myers' tombstone that is missing, which tells Dr. Loomis that he was right all along. The sweet, sweet taste of satisfaction. So a little later on, we see Annie pick up Lorie in her mother's car, and while they are driving, they spark up a J while listening to Don't Fear the Reaper on the radio, which is a song we have talked about many times on this show now.
Yes, I think this is one of the best songs
To have in a horror movie?
I think in horror. Every time I hear it, I know people are going to hate this, but I think of the Rob Zombie, the Judith kill scene.
Actually,
Just listening to it.
I always think of Scream because it's in there.
It's in a lot of fucking bangers though.
Yeah. But while this is going on, we see the ugly brown station wagon pull up behind them and begin to follow. Lorie cannot hit a joint. Holy shit, that was an awful attempt.
Well, knowing her character, that's not surprising.
Bro, she holds it with two hands. A joint with two hands. Like, she holds it like she's about to play a flute. One of those, like, recorders. It's bad. But they quickly try to put it out once Annie spots her dad on the sidewalk. They pull up next to him where he informs them that someone broke into the hardware store. Of course, he blames it on those damn kids. But he tells them that all that was stolen was a Halloween mask, some rope, and a couple of knives.
And if I was the police, I'd be a lot more concerned and probably wouldn't be thinking it was kids if somebody broke in and stole rope, knives, and a mask.
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple of things to say here. So one, Michael had that mask all day. So did he steal the mask like that night or that morning and the cops are like just now getting there? Because the alarm and shit's still going off. So obviously no one has investigated this yet. So that's kind of weird. That's a very slow response time. Number two, so someone stole a mask, rope, and knives, and, they're not really worried. especially considering a doctor just called and told you a local murderer just escaped and is heading your way.
Yeah, they must have a really, really, really low crime rate here.
Yeah.
Like these cops have never investigated any crimes of violence. I would believe a doctor too if they called me, like especially
Yeah.
growing up in this town. Obviously, you probably know the story of this, especially a small town, and there's not a lot of murders. Yeah, I would be like, okay, we'll definitely be on alert, and then showing up to this, I would be like, okay, there may be some shit going on here.
Yeah. The third thing is there's no fucking way he didn't smell that weed.
Yeah,
No
I
way.
also put that.
No way.
You know, Officer Brackett smelled the weed.
And the
Like-
people like on the sidewalk behind him probably smelled it.
You can smell weed of somebody in like 3 cars in front of you
Yeah.
on the interstate going like 80 miles an hour. You know damn well he smelled it. He's just like, he's probably one of those dads that's like,
Damn kids.
that goddamn Lorie trying to
Yeah,
trying to
Lorie's
get
fault.
my daughter to get high.
So after that, they pull off and we see Dr. Loomis walk up and attempt to talk to Sheriff Brackett. He tells him to hold on for 10 minutes, and as Loomis stands there on the sidewalk, we see Michael drive right behind him in the stolen car with the Smith's Grove logo on the side.
Never noticed that. Any other time I've
Mhm.
watched this movie, I never noticed that
He's that close.
it was that car.
Yeah.
He's literally, Loomis is looking for him, and he is literally right behind him,
So
wearing a mask. So you know Loomis would have been like, "Oh shit, that's that stolen car with the mask, and the car Michael stole."
well, he was just in that car not even 24 hours ago. Like he was driving around in the Smith Grove car, so he would recognize it pretty much instantly.
Yeah, it's got a thing on the side of it
Yeah.
that says it's like a Smith Grove sticker.
So Annie drops Lorie off at the Doyle's residence, and basically, here's the plan. So Lorie will watch Tommy at his house, and right across the street, Annie is babysitting Tommy's friend, Lindsay Wallace. Later on in the night, Linda and her boyfriend, Bob, are supposed to drop by and kind of hang out with Annie at the Wallaces. Also, Annie's boyfriend is going to try to sneak out when he gets a chance in order to hang out at the Wallaces as well. And I'm sure that plan includes smoking some reefer, drinking some beer, engaging in some sexual activities. The 3 cornerstones of slasher movies. We then jump on over to Loomis, who is now riding around with Sheriff Brackett, and they head on over to the old Myers house. They then go inside and we see that this place is in rough shape. Brackett then tells Loomis that no one has lived here since the murder of Judith Myers and is pretty much been abandoned since 1963. But Loomis is pretty adamant that Michael will return here. And while looking around, they discover evidence of someone, most likely Michael, has been there very recently. While upstairs, Loomis tells Brackett about the murder in 63 when suddenly they get jump scared from a piece of the gutter falling and breaking the window. And this is where we find out that the good Dr. Loomis is packing heat. He's got a 9mm heater.
Yeah, there's a really, really interesting theory that goes along with this, and that that the house is haunted. Like they talk about it multiple times. Tommy Doyle says it's haunted. Sheriff Brackett, before they go in there, says, everybody says this is haunted. Nobody's lived here since the murders. Then we get the gutter through the window. It just happened to be while they were standing in.
Oh, that's actually a good point.
Michael Myers wasn't on the roof. He didn't throw a gutter through the window.
Or was he?
So, well, the theory is that the house is evil. And that is part of what, Michael Myers as a kid, it was this perfect storm of his mental illness,
Evil eyes.
being like a psychopath, and then with this evil house. And it's this evil house that has kind of
Possessed him.
created him. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
created this embodiment of evil. And it's really interesting because John Carpenter talked about the haunted house thing.
Yeah, that was
he
his big thing.
Yeah, he wanted a kind of a haunted house in the movie. And also, it is the first and last shot of the entire movie is the house. So I thought that was a really interesting theory.
That's cool. Yeah, I've never heard that. But yeah, he's got a gun, and Brackett's like, damn, bro, you're scared as fuck. And Loomis is like, I tried to help this kid for 15 years. He's not a person. He's got the goddamn devil's eyes. Like, have you ever looked into the devil's eyes, man? They're fucking black. Scary as shit. They're evil. He is very adamant that no one really understands how fucked up Michael is except for him. I mean, he did spend 15 years with him, though.
Donald Pleasance does such a good job with this character in conveying somebody who is legitimately, like, scared. He's legitimately concerned. He feels like he's the only one who understands Michael enough to do anything about it or make people open their eyes. But I thought his character, man, it was written so well, and the Donald Pleasance doing the acting he did such a good job at, like, passing on that legitimate fear.
If I could be remembering it wrong, but we've seen 3 different versions of Loomis so far. We've got the Donald Pleasance, and then we got the kind of English guy from the Rob Zombie, and then we have the guy from the David Gordon Green. I do think that the guy from the Rob Zombie one did really well. I really like his Loomis, but I will say it's hard to top Donald Pleasance Loomis.
Yeah,
he does a really good job.
I agree. He's the OG. He's the best. And I think the guy who played the Loomis in Rob Zombie's films actually, based how he was going to play the character directly off of Donald Pleasance's portrayal of the character, which is what makes that good. He does such a good job because you're like, wow, he does Donald Pleasance pretty good.
One of the problems I do have with the Rob Zombie Loomis is he is a very selfish. He's a lot more selfish than, say, this Loomis. Because remember, he's like selling a book about the whole thing and trying to profit off of Michael Myers.
This Loomis does eventually write a book.
Yeah, but this one, like, he comes into this story as legitimately trying to save people.
Yeah, I think in this movie, he's legitimately scared for everybody, and he's trying to get people to understand, what fear or what danger that they're in. I think another thing with this character is he brought such great continuity to this franchise for the first 8 films. The first original 8 films in the franchise. I don't remember how many it was he came. I think it was like 6 or something. He came back for a bunch of them. And the same guy, Donald Pleasance, played him. So, it's always good when a franchise is able to do that. They don't have to get a different actor to try to pass for somebody else. Interesting thing about this character, Christopher Lee was actually, they wanted him to do the character originally, and he said that was one of his biggest mistakes in his career, was not taking this role.
Yeah, he kind of scoffed at it when they offered it to him because it's a low budget movie, and he ended up regretting it, which, I thought Christopher Lee would probably do a pretty good job. It's hard to say if he would have done better than Donald Pleasance, but I think he would have did good.
Yeah, knowing the Dr. Loomis we have now, he is the standard, but yeah, I think Christopher Lee would have made the character his own. I think he would have did a great job. I don't think there's anything that guy's been in where he's not been great in.
So Brackett's like, okay, what do we do about this Michael Myers situation? And Loomis just tells him that he will stay here at the Myers house and wait for Michael to return, while Brackett drives around and informs his men to be on the lookout. Brackett agrees and tells him that he will check back in an hour. So back on over at Annie's, we see that she is on the phone with Lorie when the Wallace's dog begins to bark at something outside. That something is Michael, who is peeping through the kitchen window. Annie gets frustrated with the dog and lets him out, where we see him approach Michael while growling. And even though we hear the dog yelp in pain, I'm sure Michael petted him nicely, gave him a treat, and he lived happily ever after, because dogs are the best and no harm shall come to them.
Yeah, unfortunately that's not what happened.
That is what happened.
It's actually, so this is a big thing in horror. We've talked about it before, how many times dogs die in movies. It's awful. But this one was actually not too awful. They didn't show the dog, or
It showed his legs.
So the way they shot that is that they actually slowed the footage down and just kept slowing it down until it pauses, which is when the dog stops moving. It was really interesting. They didn't do anything special for that.
Yeah, and I know it was like the dog's trainer that was the one holding him. But in my mind canon, the dog's fine.
Or what about Annie literally like spills some butter, some melted butter, and she literally takes all her clothes off.
Yeah, well, we'll go over
It's
this because
such
this
a
is
movie
weird.
thing.
So while they're on the phone, Tommy looks out the window where he sees some kids still trick-or-treating. But over towards Lindsay's house, he sees the silhouette of Michael Myers just standing in the driveway. You know, on Halloween, while kids are trick-or-treating, a guy just standing in his driveway looking creepy is not that out of place. Like, I do this same thing when I'm giving out candy.
Yeah, this was like the perfect night to have this movie on, because this is the one night he can get away with standing outside of houses or even driving this car around. Like, if you've seen this on Halloween, you'd be like, yeah, that's weird, but it is Halloween.
Yeah.
Somebody's just dressed up for Halloween, fucking with people.
Yeah, I mean, I stand out there because our yard's like, decorated to the max, and I always have my, whatever Halloween costume I have on that year. And I stand out there and I fuck with the kids. Some of them come up and get candy. Some of them say, fuck that, I'm not going up there. And it's fun. It's just a fun part of Halloween. But yeah, this would not be very out of place.
Maybe Michael was just looking for some candy to give out.
Yeah. But this freaks Tommy out because remember, the shithead kids at school told him that the boogeyman was coming. He gets Lorie to look out the window, but of course, Michael is gone. We then see Michael standing at the back door watching Annie again, and I want to point out, because I know some people don't like it, but I love the heavy breathing in the masks that we hear during the Michael scenes. Like, it does a good job of putting you there with Michael, especially during like the stalking watching scenes. It really like puts you there with him. Like, you're almost, there next to him or something. Because I think almost everybody has put on fucking mask before and you can hear like the breathing, you know?
I agree 100%. So in the scene when Annie drops Lorie off at the house, it actually, they like have the music playing and then they kill it whenever they're doing the POV from inside the car. Or it's almost a POV from right next to him. But that made that scene so much creepier. Like, just having that silence and hearing him breathe as he's watching them. And they do it throughout the whole movie. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing people hated. I actually love that.
Yeah, some people are like, oh, it's like a gimmick or whatever. It's just like a cheesy gimmick that they put in there. But
have they never worn a mask?
But I think it's awesome. And on this watch, I actually kind of put a cool little theory together with this mask breathing thing for the very end of the movie, and I think it's cool.
Does Michael Myers have COPD?
He does. So while on the phone, Annie spills something all over her clothes, and she decides that while at someone else's house, she's going to strip down, put on some of their clothes while she washes her shit, which I personally think is a little weird. Like,
yeah, very, very weird.
Maybe things were different back in the 70s, but, if I came home after a night out and the motherfucking babysitter was sitting there wearing my shirt in just her underwear, I'd be like, what the fuck? I don't know if I'd hire her again.
Yeah,
that's weird.
It'd be definitely weird. I think it's weird that she spilled like a very small thing and literally strips down into just her panties. Like, wait, couldn't have went all over everything.
Yeah, it would have been a little bit better if, hey, I'm just going to take off my shirt. I'm going to throw it in the dryer real quick to maybe, so it's not at least wet. But I would have definitely kept my pants on, for sure.
Lindsay's mom, if her parents are together, she's going to be pretty upset when her husband walks in the door.
Yeah.
And there's this almost naked, like 17-year-old, 18-year-old girl in her house.
So right after this, we get almost an Easter egg, I guess. We see that Tommy is watching a movie on TV. And this movie is the OG 1951 version of The Thing, which John Carpenter went on to direct the remake just 4 years later. And in my opinion, by far the best remake ever made, and is a contender for, one of the best movies ever made. But this is cool.
Yeah, this was literally a Easter egg from the future when this
Yep.
was done.
Now, I found out that the reason he put it in there is because this is actually one of his favorite movies.
Well, for somebody, like if I was making movies, I wouldn't want to touch my favorite movie. Like I'd be like, I'll remake something else, but I
Yeah.
don't want to touch that. But a lot of people don't know this movie exists because his
This is so good.
yeah, his version
Yeah.
of the thing is so good.
So next we see Annie take her clothes out to the laundry room, which is inconveniently located in a separate little house on the back of the property. And while she is putting her clothes in, Michael closes the door and quietly locks her inside. Annie tries to yell for Lindsay but gets no response. She then finds an unlocked small window and attempts to escape that way. There is a really cool shot that I never noticed until now. When Annie is standing at the locked door, like banging on it and yelling for Lindsay, you can just barely see the reflection of Michael's mask in the glass.
It looks awesome.
He's just standing off to the side, like watching her try to get out. And I'd never seen that until this time, and I was stoked about it. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, there's actually a couple shots like that I'd never noticed throughout the movie, this being one of them. Man, I'm convinced that Annie has one of those consensual, non-consensual fetishes. She literally strips her clothes down and then gets her stuck in just her panties with her ass hanging out the window and her foot conveniently stuck in something where she can't move. It is literally like the intro to a porn.
It's the porno where it's like girl stuck in washer.
Yeah, she gets stuck stuck in the dryer. Yes,
And I'm like, sure. But while trying to climb out of the laundry room, Annie gets her foot stuck in a rack and is now just left hanging out the window. But lucky for her, her boyfriend Paul calls, prompting Lindsay to answer the phone and go looking for Annie, where she ultimately unlocks the door and helps Annie get out. So after talking to Paul, Annie comes up with the plan to drop Lindsay off across the street with Lorie and Tommy, while she leaves to go pick up Paul. Once Lindsay is dropped off with Lorie, we see Annie grab her keys and get into her car, when suddenly, Michael pops up from the back seat, grabbing Annie by the neck and begins to strangle her. She tries to fight and get away, but Michael's grip is too tight, and as she gasps for air, he reaches over and cuts her neck with a knife, killing her. This scene has always been uncomfortable to me because of the strangling. It goes on for a long time. There's no music. So it's just like the sounds of her like trying to breathe. And we also hear like, Michael's breathing in the mask. And I honestly think like Nancy Loomis really sells this scene as an actress. She does a good job here.
Yeah, I absolutely love this scene, and I love how long the
I love it too.
strangling is. They do such a good job at this scene and really throughout the movie, building this like unsettling tension the whole time. You see him, if you look close, he's creeping behind them the entire movie, stalking them. And it gets to a point where you never know when he's going to pop out. And you think he would have killed her. There's the whole laundry room scene, her going back in for the keys, being in the house, coming back out. Before she gets in the car, you think it's going to happen. And then she finally gets in the car and he pops out of the back seat. So the surprise was fucking awesome. And then, like you were saying, the length of time that the strangulation goes on, which is much more realistic. When you get strangled to death, it's generally a process, or any time you die from asphyxiation, it takes some time. And I hate when movies will have like a 5-second choking and somebody dies and they're gone. So I thought it was, especially for a movie that intentionally doesn't show as much gore, they kind of like leave it up to the rest of the movie to really scare you. I thought it was a good touch.
Yeah, another thing too is like how Michael is during this scene, because he's like right up on her, and he's like staring at her. He's just like watching the light leave her eyes because he's kind of hunched over the seat and choking her, and he's kind of like up, like looking down on her a little bit. And it's just creepy, man. Like he literally likes to kill people just to see them die.
Yeah, this is also the first time the world gets a closer shot of the mask.
Yeah.
The first time the world really gets to see the mask. Most of it's through the blurry window, but it still looks so good.
Yeah. So Tommy looks out the window again where he sees Michael just casually carrying Annie's dead body into the house. Why he didn't go to the back door is beyond me. But yeah, I don't know. He carried her out into the front door. So next up, we see Linda and her boyfriend Bob arrive at the Wallace's house, where Annie is supposed to be babysitting. A really weird thing here that totally aged like milk.
Well, aged like I don't think it was great. Then if
apparently it wasn't that bad, then
what you're about to say,
I'm about to say it.
I've never picked up on this, and I was like, I rewound it.
I had to rewind it. Yeah,
there's no way.
I thought I misheard it at first.
Yeah, I had the subtitles on. I had to read it for a second time because I'm like, there's no way that he just said this, and I don't know how this isn't brought up more when people are talking about this movie.
So Linda is explaining the plan to Bob. And Bob says, yeah, I got it. First I rip your clothes off, then I rip my clothes off, then we rip Lindsay's clothes off. And I'm like, what? Did you just make a joke about getting naked with a little girl?
Yeah.
Like, Lindsay's like fucking 9 years old, man.
Yeah, she's like somewhere between 8 and 10, and you literally just made a joke about you and your teenage girlfriend essentially molesting a child.
Yeah, so if I were in a vehicle with somebody I was dating and she said that, I'd be like, well, this ended. This is over. This night's done. I would be like, I'm going to go home now. I don't know what the fuck is up with you, but yeah, I'm completely turned off now at this point. You've ruined it and I can never talk to you again. You're weird.
Yeah, what the fuck, Bob? I can't stand his character now. So I'm really happy with his turnout. What happens to him? Never noticed that. Never really had any feelings towards
Annie?
Bob.
Like, it would have made more sense if he's like, yeah, I want to hook up with my girlfriend and my girlfriend's friend, but he completely leaves Annie out. And he's like, and there's a kid.
What's really weird is it's a movie, so that was obviously intentionally written that way. It's not like somebody could have just misspoke. And man, what the fuck were they thinking when they put that in there? Maybe they were trying to make you not like Bob.
That's not the way to do it. Just make him like a douche. So they run into the house where they find all the lights off and nobody home. They immediately begin making out on the couch where we see Michael standing in the hallway watching. A few minutes later, Linda calls Lorie across the street asking where Annie is, and she tells her that she went to pick up Paul and should be back shortly. This is great news to Linda, who quickly gets off the phone and takes Bob upstairs for some fucking. Now, I got some things to say here. One, whose bed are they fucking in? Like, is this Lindsay's mom and dad's bed?
Probably.
Because they're 100% going to be able to tell that somebody fucked in their bed when they get home.
I don't know, man. As quick as Bob is, there's probably not much left behind.
Well, also, how long are they going to be gone? I would assume that they would be back any time now. The guy, I don't know if you've seen, he wore a fucking suit and tie to the party. You don't wear a suit and tie for like an all-nighter.
Yeah.
Like, you wear a suit and tie, you know you're going to be back in a few hours.
Yeah, I also thought I made the comment, like, Annie takes their daughter over to the boy across the street's house with his babysitter, and now she's going to stay the night over there. Like, I would be pissed if the babysitter took my daughter and she slept somewhere else for the night.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you, is like, how pissed would you be if you hired a babysitter and then you come home, you find your kid and the babysitter both gone, and two strange teenagers fucking, having sex in your bed with beer cans all over your fucking room? They wouldn't have to worry about Michael Myers killing them. I think I would fucking kill them.
I'd be going to jail for sure.
Yeah.
Probably better off that Lindsay was across the street instead of being with pedo Bob
Yeah.
over at the house. But goddamn, man,
Yeah.
this is a weird series of events.
So Bob lasts about a total of 90 seconds before he genital sneezes all over the Wallace's sheets. And Linda's over here acting like she just had the greatest sex of her life. Bob then heads downstairs to get some beers, and while down in the kitchen, he sees the back door open slightly. So Bob decides to investigate. So he walks over and closes the door, but then assumes someone is playing a joke on him. He begins opening the pantry door looking for the jokester, when suddenly Michael comes flying out of the closet, grabbing Bob by the neck, slamming him against the wall. Bob tries to pull Michael's hand away from his neck, but Michael's too strong. Michael then, with one arm, lifts Bob up almost to the ceiling, pulls out his long-ass butcher knife, stabbing it into Bob's chest, where it goes through his whole ass body and into the wall, pinning him there. We then get this far back shot of a now dead Bob just pinned to the wall by this knife that's like sticking out of his chest, and Michael is just standing there looking at him and even does this like sideways head tilt. This is honestly like one of the best kills in the movie. It really shows like how powerful Michael is and how brutal he can be. It's also a really suspenseful scene and actually a really good jump scare.
Yeah, I love Bob's death scene. For one, he like charges him with like a level of brutality that we hadn't really seen yet in the movie. But then after he pins him to the wall, when he's like standing back, kind of doing his head tilt, looking at him, just like staring at his body, like, what the fuck? I can't believe that worked.
Yeah.
I loved that whole scene. I loved the shot of him in the hallway standing in front of the body, just like staring at him pinned to the wall.
Well, we see Michael kill and stalk like, so far in the movie, like women, 110 pound, 120 pound women. But here we actually see him not only attack a male, but he lifts him up in the air with one arm. Like, so it just shows like Michael is not just some regular guy that's out killing people. Like, he is got fucking super strength. We find out later he can't be fucking killed. Like, he is something kind of special. And I think this scene is really the first time you see his ability to really fuck anybody up.
Yeah, it's an iconic kill scene.
Yep.
Like, for this movie, it's, I would say, the most iconic kill in the movie.
So meanwhile, back upstairs, Linda is lying in bed, filing her fingernails, which the sound of this drives me crazy. When suddenly the bedroom door slowly swings open and we see Michael dressed as a ghost. He's basically has put this sheet over his body, cut 2 eye holes, and put on Paul's glasses. So she obviously thinks this is Paul fucking around. She tries talking to him, but of course he doesn't answer. She even tries to entice him with some boobs, but it doesn't work. Boobs only get Michael horny for murder, apparently. She then gets frustrated and picks up the phone to call Lorie and ask about Annie and Paul. Michael then begins to slowly walk her way. And as soon as Lorie picks up the phone, Michael grabs the phone cord and begins strangling Linda with it. Now, Lorie can hear Linda choking on the other end, but at first she assumes that these are the sounds of Bob's legendary 90 seconds of pure pleasure. But after a while, she realizes that Bob can't last that long, so maybe these are sounds of something wrong. Michael finishes off Linda, unlike Bob, and hangs up the phone, while Lorie looks out of the window, concerned at the Wallace house. She then tries to call back, but gets no answer. So what does she decide to do? Investigate.
Man, leave the kids by themselves.
Yeah. We then jump on back over to Loomis, who has been standing outside the Myers house all night, and he starts getting a little bored, I guess, and he turns around, and what does he see parked right down the street? The stolen Smith Grove car. Wow, I'm surprised he did not see this earlier.
Yeah, Dr. Loomis is no detective. That is for sure. He has been out here all night, standing next to this fucking house, and he just now notices the car that was stolen literally right down the street from him.
He's no Tom Atkins in Halloween 3.
He's
a
not
doctor detective.
Tom Atkins in anything.
No. We then see Lorie head on over to the Wallace house where no one seems to be home. She then walks around back where she finds the back door slightly open. So she heads inside but can't find anybody and no one is answering her calls. Once she makes it to the living room, she hears a noise from upstairs. She thinks they are fucking with her and she yells, "All right, meatheads, joke's over." Meatheads.
Yeah,
That's what you came up with. Meatheads.
Yeah, definitely some weird dialogue there.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very I don't think I've ever heard somebody call
Anybody a
people
meathead?
meatheads, let alone
No.
some teenagers.
She then heads upstairs and makes her way to the bedroom, and when she opens the door, she finds Annie's body laying on the bed with Judith Myers' tombstone leaned against the headboard. Lorie kind of starts freaking out here, like she's in shock, and as she backs up into the wall, we suddenly see Bob's dead body come swinging into the doorway of the closet. So this is a move that will eventually become another slasher icon, Jason Voorhees' favorite way to fuck with people. So Friday the 13th totally stole this.
Yeah, this is 100% definitely inspired Jason's kills. I mean, with him swinging down upside down from the closet, like, I'm pretty sure Jason was here. Like, he was hanging out at this house. He must showed Michael how to rig that up.
Yeah.
We just hadn't gotten a Friday the 13th movie yet, but he was there.
Yeah. But Lorie freaks out when she sees this, running to the other side of the room, where she then sees another door open and Linda's dead body has been stuffed into a cabinet. So after all this, Lorie runs out of the room screaming, where she pretty much starts having a breakdown in the hallway when suddenly Michael appears in the dark, shadowy doorway behind her. As she slowly begins to walk towards the steps, Michael raises his butcher knife and full swings towards Lorie's back. But he fucking misses by a mile, grazing the side of her arm instead.
It's almost as if he meant to miss. Like, her back is turned. That is a far miss.
Did
he like trip?
They should have had her like stumble right there or kind of step to the side at the last second.
He like
make it more believable, because how the fuck did he miss like
did
that?
He fall over one of his tripwires that he had rigged up to make all those bodies fall down?
It's weird.
I do. So the scene of him in the closet and the white mask was slowly lighting up. That's such a fucking awesome shot.
They actually did this with, the light was on a dimmer.
Yeah.
And they just slowly dimmed it up a little bit. Yeah. But Lorie's arm gets cut pretty good, and as she turns and screams, she falls over the railing, landing on the stairs, which would fucking hurt. That'd probably break your leg. But Michael comes chasing after her, but she is able to get up and escape the house. Michael actually has the back door like blocked with a rake, and she struggles with the door for a while before just like breaking the glass with her hand and moving the rake. Dude, fuck that. I would have Kool-Aid manned right through that fucking door.
Yeah.
I would not have sat and messed around with it for as long as she did.
If I just found all those dead bodies, I would have been out of there. It'd been like the guy from the Night of the Demons.
Yeah, you just go through the window.
Just literally jump through the wall of the house. He's gonna get away.
You won't get me. But she gets out and starts running through the yard, yelling for help. She runs up to the neighbors and bangs on the door while screaming. The neighbors look out the window and say, "Fuck that bitch," because not only do they not open the door, but they also turn off the porch light.
Well, I think they thought somebody was trick-or-treating. It's Halloween night, so they're like,
we're screaming for help.
We're not giving out candy. I don't know.
Or help. We're not giving out candy or help here.
No help. We're out of help.
Once she realizes that this is a dead end, she then runs back to Tommy's house, but she forgot the keys and the door is locked. She then starts screaming for Tommy to open the door, which he does, but Michael is slowly walking towards her and getting closer by the second. She finally gets inside right before Michael makes it to the front steps. Lorie tries using the phone, but Michael has cut the line. And then, just when she thinks things can't get any worse, the lights shut off, and this is where she notices that the living room window is wide open. She then sits in front of the couch clutching a crochet needle, which is long as fuck, as she kind of cries for help. Michael pops up from behind the couch and misses again with the knife. He needs to get his fucking knife hand recalibrated. Something's off.
I found it so fucking funny how Michael Myers was literally just hiding behind this tiny little love seat.
Yeah.
Like when he pops up, I'm like, oh my God. He was literally just crouched down, laying down back.
It's like the scene in Scary
Movie where he's like kicking his feet.
I can see your feet. The blade of the butcher knife goes deep into the couch, allowing Lorie to stab Michael in the neck with the crochet needle. Michael jumps up, grabbing at the needle. He then pulls it out, falling to the floor. Lorie assumes that she has killed him at this point and feels a wave of relief wash over her.
Such relief that she throws her knife down.
Yes. She then heads upstairs and finds the kids hiding in a closet. She tries to calm them down by telling them that she killed him, but the kids then scream as they see Michael walking up the stairs behind her. Honestly, this would be extremely terrifying to see as a child. Like, this would fuck me up. Like, some guy breaks in your house and he looks like this. Like,
coming up the steps.
Yeah.
Behind the only what you see as an adult.
Yeah. So they run off and hide again, and Lorie runs into the master bedroom. And this room has a little balcony with some French doors leading to it. Now, Lorie does something smart here. She actually opens those French doors to make it look like she escaped out that way, but in reality, she's hiding in the closet.
I will say that is the only top tier final girl thing she does. That was really smart.
Yeah.
Like opening, although it didn't do anything, it was still smart.
It was still a good idea.
They do a really cool thing with the cinematography in this movie where if you look close, so at the beginning of the movie, a lot of it's shot outside. And then as it goes on, the rooms that these scenes are shot in get smaller and smaller until it culminates in this closet right here.
Oh, yeah.
To really give like a sense of dread, like the walls are closing in. There's nowhere left to hide. That was something I read they were talking about, and I thought that was really cool.
It is cool. Now, this is a really slick idea. Unfortunately, though, Michael doesn't fall for it because he immediately goes for the closet door. She has managed to tie the little doorknob together so the doors won't open, but they have those like shitty little vent things on them, and Michael just starts like knocking those things out. So while he's breaking into the closet, Lorie reaches up and grabs a wire hanger, kind of bending it apart, and once Michael starts to come at her, she pokes him in the fucking eye with this hanger.
Bro,
this messes him up.
She homemade aborted his eye with that hanger.
It's kind of amusing to see that even pure evil is susceptible to eye injuries.
Yeah, man, eye injuries ain't nothing to fuck with.
No.
He's already like in a mask, so he doesn't have very good vision. I love that he knocks this fucking the wooden closet vents out and cuts the light on.
Yeah,
like he's I gotta see. I love the angle too that they shoot it from like her POV of him like wrecking this closet trying to get in.
It makes it scary though.
It does. It is. It's very scary because they've hit that point in this movie where it's like the walls are closing in. There's nowhere else to run. She's in this closet, but he attacks this fucking closet with a super high level of brutality. And I was like, man, that would have been just being on set, seeing that would have been really cool.
Yeah. But Michael then drops his knife and grabs his eye, where Lorie then picks it up and she stabs him with it. He painfully grabs his abdomen and falls to the floor, with Lorie now killing him twice. She makes her way out to the hallway where she gets the kids. She tells them to run down to the Mackenzie's house and have them call the police. They take off down the stairs as a now exhausted and injured Lorie sits on the floor leaning against the doorway. And as Lorie closes her eyes to rest for a moment, we suddenly see Michael quickly sit up behind her.
Yeah, this movie, like her having to step over his body, I thought they do such a good job at making this movie so unnerving and building tension I thought it was genius that she had to step over his body while he's still laying there. And then to give us the cinematography on this shot where he's not in focus. Her face is in focus, but you can see him in the background lift up. Thought that was like just the tension in this entire movie leading up to this whole climax is I thought genius.
Yeah. The kids then bolt out of the front door, screaming all the way down the street. And who sees this happen? Dr. motherfucking Loomis, that's who. And he knows the eyes of evil are in that house. Back upstairs, Lorie and Michael both stand up at the same time, with Lorie having no idea Michael is still alive. He then begins slowly walking up behind her. He then grabs her, turns her around, and begins choking her in the hallway. Loomis comes running up the stairs where he sees Michael and Lorie fighting. He then pulls out his gun right as Lorie grabs Michael's mask and pulls it up almost off of his head. Michael lets go of Lorie in order to fix his mask, and as soon as he puts it back on, Loomis fires a shot, hitting Michael. He then chases Michael into the master bedroom where he fires more rounds into Michael's chest until Michael stumbles out of the French doors and falls over the balcony railing. A distraught Lorie then looks at Loomis and asks if that was the boogeyman, to which Loomis responds, as a matter of fact, it was. Loomis then looks over the balcony railing down at Michael when he is shocked to find the man missing. We see a worried look come over Loomis's face as Lorie begins to cry. We then hear the familiar sound of Michael's heavy breathing in his mask as the music begins to play. We then get all of these shots of the houses, including the Myers house, as the breathing gets more intense. We then get a black screen with the word Halloween in orange. And that is the end of John Carpenter's Halloween.
Man, I thought the ending was genius. The whole showing the different shots and his breathing, his breathing staying consistent in the background, gives you the sense that he could be anywhere.
Damn it, you took my fucking theory. That's what I had. I'd finally put that together. And I was like, well, because the breathing gets kind of louder and more intense. And we're getting shots of fucking Annie's house, fucking Lorie's house, the Myers house. And it was like, oh, it's because he could be anywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's what really left people leaving theaters with a heavy impact of that last scene of, oh my God, this guy, now we know for sure, he can't be killed. And we hear that breathing, I don't think those shots would have been nearly as effective without his breathing through the mask in the background. Thought that was genius. I do hate that they showed his face.
I agree.
I'm
totally agree.
Yeah, I'm a big enemy of the idea.
It pulls you out. It pulled me out of the story a little bit.
Yeah,
because I think that's one of the appeals of Michael Myers. Is we can't see his eyes, you look through the mask where a normal person, you could see the white of their eyes, but we can't. So we have no fucking idea what's under that mask. And we see it here, and it's like, oh, man.
When you show his face, it humanizes him.
Yeah,
and the mask...
He doesn't look evil.
Yeah, the mask with no features and the coveralls and not being able to see the eyes, it really dehumanizes him. And Dr. Loomis is talking the whole movie about him being the embodiment of evil. And you really don't see him as a person until that mask comes off. And I do like that he put the mask back on immediately. And I do like that it was almost like Dr. Loomis had to wait for him to put that mask back on before he shot him. Almost like he couldn't shoot him, looking at his face because he knew him so well. But as soon as he put that mask back on, that's when he shot. So I thought that was cool with the timing and all. I just wish they would have never taken the mask off.
If you look at a movie an example, Maniac Cop, right? We spend a big chunk of this movie seeing, how bad this character is. He's murdering these people. And we don't see his face. And then we finally at the end see his face and he looks fucked up. And you're like, oh, okay. it's okay to show his face because he looks fucked up. Like he's obviously a bad guy by just looking at him. But here we see Michael's face and he doesn't look like a bad guy.
He doesn't
looks
even look that old.
no, I mean
He's not.
He's
Yeah,
like, what, like 20 or something at this point?
Yeah, I think he's, 20, 21.
He looks
So,
like
I
a young
mean-
guy who's made some mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like a 21-year-old. And I mean, I thought that made it less scary too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that was a mistake. One of the few mistakes I would say that this movie has. I do love that the ending with Dr. Loomis looking down and almost like having that face, like he knew that Michael wasn't going to be there when he looked over. Like it almost checked a box in his head. Like he had always had a feeling that there was something inherently evil and supernatural about Michael Myers, or
Yeah.
at least after the first 7 years. And that's why he tried so hard to keep him locked up. He's not bad in a normal way. He is like nothing I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's not normal.
And when he looks over and sees he's not there anymore, it's like he almost, it confirms that in his head. Like I knew that there was something supernatural about him.
So 5 different people played the role of Michael Myers. We got Nick Castle, who played him mostly throughout the movie. We have Tony Moran, who actually plays him during the unmasking scene. We have stuntman James Winburn, who I believe he played him when he does the balcony. He falls off the balcony. Production designer Tommy Lee Wallace, he played him in the beginning where he shatters the glass and stuff, and it was because he knew how much force would be needed to break some of the props and stuff like that. So he played him there. And then co-writer / producer Deborah Hill, she actually plays him twice. The little kid scene, that's her. And then she actually plays him when Tommy looks out of the window and sees him standing over by the Wallace house.
Yeah.
So a lot of people played Michael Myers here. So the Myers house was originally an abandoned building the filmmakers found in South Pasadena, California. After the movie, it actually became a chiropractor's office, and it eventually was turned into a museum dedicated to this film. That's really cool.
Oh, that's interesting. That was the house?
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually watched a video either yesterday or earlier today of them going through the Halloween museum.
Yeah.
And that must have been it. And it looked like just a house. So that's why it stood out to me. I was like, that's kind of weird.
So at the 3 minutes and 54 second mark, the lights go off upstairs where Michael's sister and her boyfriend are. The boyfriend is heard saying goodnight to her from the stairs at the 5 minute mark, leaving only 1 minute and 6 seconds for them to have slept together. So apparently other people thought that this was weird timing as well, and someone timed it.
Well, better than Bob.
That
was all one
better than Bob.
scene that you gave him 90 seconds. I thought that was being very generous. I thought that was maybe a 30 seconds from the time he took the phone off the cradle. Thought that was I gotta say, I give it up for Linda. She's a good girlfriend because she really played that shit up.
So the scene where Loomis finds the Smith Groves car, well, that was shot on 1356 Ganesh Street. Nancy's house from A Nightmare on Elm Street is 1428 Ganesh Street. So it is literally right down the street is the Nightmare on Elm Street house.
Huh, I did not know that.
That's super
pretty
cool. That's my Nightmare on Elm Street tie-in to go with yours from earlier. Originally, the script had Dr. Loomis having a surprised reaction to the disappearance of Michael Myers' body from the backyard at the film's ending. Donald Pleasance suggested his character's reaction should instead be an "I knew this would happen" look. They shot it both ways and ended up using Donald Pleasance's idea.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So that went right along with what I was saying.
Yeah, I held off until we got to this because I knew it would go along with that.
I do know that there was I don't know, I guess people theorized that there was actually a ending shot of him running away, and there actually is this video, but people found out years later it was just him like after the shot was cut, him getting up. And,
Just getting up.
Yeah.
All right, so ratings and kill count. Total five. Total kills, we have 5. We have Judith Myers, who was stabbed with a butcher knife by baby Michael. We have the mechanic guy, who we don't have any idea how he died. We have Annie Brackett, who was strangled and had her throat slit. We have Bob, who was stabbed through the chest with the butcher knife, and Linda, who was strangled to death with the phone cord. All right, so favorite kill.
So my best kill, I went with Bob. I fucking hate Bob, especially pedo Bob and his pedo comments. But his body being pinned to the wall, super iconic. Like Michael Myers, the way he just stands there and looks. Thought that was awesome. But a very close second is Annie Brackett's. Him popping up from the backseat, like I talked about, they had built tension so well in that scene. And for him to pop up and the brutality that he like strangles her with, I thought that was great.
Yeah, you pretty much took everything I was going to say. My favorite kill was Bob, close second, Annie. I would agree with you. All right, so film rating.
So I gave this a 4.8. So this movie is an absolute classic. You know, the acting was great. The cinematography in this movie was really good, and it was actually it's really dark, and that was completely unintentional. That was
they just didn't have money.
That was their low budget. But I think it worked out really good with the scenes with Michael Myers and them choosing a white mask. It really makes those scenes, especially towards the end, really good. I thought the story was great. I thought the level of continuity is one thing that I've never noticed. Like even down to small details, like when they're leaving the house to take Lindsay, Annie and Lindsay is leaving to go across the street. She's watching the movie and it goes to commercial. And when they get across the street, it's just now coming back from commercial.
Yeah.
Just small things like that I thought was really good. They do a really good job at showing like Michael Myers is literally watching them this entire movie, which was another really cool thing that I'd never really picked up on with certain scenes with the car. So one of the crown jewels of this movie is the score. I think the score is absolutely perfect. In my opinion, it is the most iconic score in horror. Michael Myers, the character design was great, obviously. The mask is huge. The William Shatner mask, and they end up just painting it. For the fact that they had no idea what mask they were going to use, and to end up, just getting a mask and painting it, it worked out perfect. I don't think they could have picked a better mask for the character. And I try to give the movies, when I'm rating them, I try to take into account not just the movie itself, but, the impact that movies had. And there's really no greater impact to slashers and 80s horror in general. This movie, without this movie, we wouldn't have got the Friday the 13th, the Nightmare on Elm Streets, the My Bloody Valentine, like those type of movies we wouldn't have gotten. And overall, man, it's just a great movie.
Yeah.
It's classic.
So, I don't know if people know this or not. I'm not a Michael Myers super fan. I like him. Like, he's always been pretty good. Not as big of a fan as, let's say, Jason, Freddy, stuff like that. So when I went in to watch this movie, I went in with a clean slate. I didn't think anything about the other movies, the whole franchise. I pretended like I'd never seen this movie before, and I pretended that I didn't know there was going to be any sequels. It's just this movie. So I kind of went in with a blank slate, and I gave the movies fucking 5-star movie. There is nothing that I can say about this that hasn't already been said like 1,000 times. I will say that the music and cinematography is a huge part of my rating. This movie leans really hard into suspense, in my opinion. They kind of went the more suspense route instead of the gory route, which how this movie is shot and how the music is and the lighting, the suspense is so good that I'm okay with no gore. Like, that's cool. And it does a really good job of suspense. Like, as many times as I have seen this movie, some of the scenes still get me. That they're still surprising. Like, I'm just waiting for him to pop out. And when he does, like, it's, it's not a big jump scare, but I'm, like, holy shit. It does really good at that. I do think that the beginning feels a little rushed. I feel like they jump into the whole him escaping and how he escaped. It's really quick. They kind of get right to Michael is got him a car and he's gone.
I kind of love that though. I love that they jump straight into it. Now I did like Rob Zombie kind of showing a little bit more of the build up to that. And I think that's one of the greatest parts of Rob Zombie's version of this movie. But yeah, I did also like them jumping straight into it.
I like the I'm not referencing the scene where little Michael, kills his sister. I'm specifically talking about him escaping from the jail. I do like Rob Zombie's version of it better. Because I feel like, they pull up and I don't even know this is fucking Michael that's stealing the car. Well, I have no idea.
He's already escaped when this is happening. Yeah. He hasn't gotten a car yet, but they don't show any of how him or all these other people got out. I
would have, liked it if it was maybe 5 minutes longer. Not drastically longer, but a little longer, because I do feel like that part is really quick. And then my other complaint is I thought it was a mistake to unmask him at the end. But, nothing's perfect.
I agree. I like the way Rob Zombie's movie did it, showing him escaping. And, I don't think it would have been bad if they'd did 5 minutes towards it. But one thing that it would have affected is they do a really good job at not showing him really throughout this movie. I mean, you don't even see him up close with the mask until almost in the movie where Annie dies. So they it almost builds that up in your head if you don't know the character, you're watching this for the first time. Because Dr. Loomis is talking about how he is like the embodiment of evil and his eyes are like, pitch black. And they purposely, while he's building this character up, you only see little parts of him. But you never see him, up close, or you definitely don't see him without a mask. So it would have been kind of difficult for them to pull that off. It kind of would have messed that up a little bit, but I think if it was done right, it could have been good.
Before this rewatch, I would have given this movie a 4. But when I watched it this time, kind of, it by itself, clean slate, not thinking about anything else Michael Myers, and then really paying attention to lighting, music, cinematography, it completely changed my mind on the movie. I actually love it way more than I had ever loved it before. I think it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic movie.
Yeah, I agree. That's one big thing I took away from doing this episode, and it's happened a couple times on movies we've covered, but I watch movies much differently now that I'm older, and especially now that we do the show, and I'm watching in such close detail at everything and every scene, and things like cinematography and score, that, I kind of understand, why this movie was as big as it was, when it came out. And before I had always watched it and I was a much bigger Friday the 13th fan. And, it was a good movie, but really watching it in detail, I'm like, there was so much stuff that I had never really picked up on before. And it's definitely a great movie.
Yeah, I will agree. This is by far the best score in any horror movie.
Yeah, they used that score so many times throughout the movie, and the way they used the score, you can always tell, like, there was certain scenes where I was looking for the car in the background or something, or, when they're inside, and you almost know when Michael Myers is around because they'll start playing, like, certain parts of the score. But that main score that we come in and go out on, I don't know what it is, man, but it's like, it is the perfect score for Halloween. And I think it had no impact. But yeah, there's no greater score in horror.
Well, that is our coverage of John Carpenter's Halloween. Happy Halloween to everybody. This should come out on Halloween week. Once again, we thank you guys for listening. We are headed over to the Patreon to talk a little more about Halloween. If you're not joining us over there, we will see you next time. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website, check out the socials. Tell a friend, a family member, or the boogeyman about the show. Any last words?
Fuck you, pedo Bob.
He's got the blackest eyes, man. The eyes of evil. We'll go out on this one to the Halloween theme.